The warning signs can no longer be hidden. Russia presents itself as unbreakable, yet behind the polished speeches and staged confidence, its economy is unraveling at the core. This is not just about sanctions squeezing exports or oil prices dipping. What is happening now strikes at something far more dangerous. Money itself is losing value. The ruble, once defended as stable, is disintegrating in ways no propaganda can disguise. This isn't a temporary setback or a mild recession. It is the kind of systemic breakdown that spreads into every transaction, every household, every corner of daily life. Because when money falters, there is no substitute. Wages vanish into rising prices, savings evaporate, and the foundations of modern life crack. And so the question can no longer be avoided. If Russia's money is failing, what does that mean for the lives of millions who depend on it to survive? The answer appears in the numbers Moscow tries hardest to hide. Official statistics claim the ruble is steady, but when measured against gold, the reality is stark. In September 2022, 1 ounce of gold cost about 101,000 rubles. By September 2025, that figure had exploded to more than 254,000 rubles. That's more than doubled in just 3 years. A collapse in value that no economy can withstand. This is why Russians feel poorer, even if their salaries haven't changed. Every trip to the store empties wallets faster, while rents, heating bills, and medicine eat into paychecks. Disposable income has already turned negative for months, meaning families are spending more than they earn, draining whatever savings remain. And this is only the beginning. If the ruble continues to lose value, what does it mean for businesses, wages, and the survival of the middle class? The answer is already visible in daily life. As the ruble loses value, wages can't keep pace with soaring prices. What was once dinners in trendy cafes is now replaced with sacks of potatoes carried home from village markets. A lifestyle that once promised comfort is being traded for survival, one small compromise at a time. Official Russian data may insist that inflation sits just above 8%, but independent monitoring groups warn the real figure is higher. Food staples climb week by week, utilities drain household budgets, and the middle class that once defined modern Russian cities is shrinking fast. Disposable income has fallen into negative territory for more than half a year, forcing families to dig into savings or credit just to cover basics. And of course, businesses feel the same strain. Shops cut staff to survive, restaurants sit half empty, and service industries that once symbolized prosperity are closing their doors. When consumers spend less, entire sectors unravel, and behind each shuttered storefront or abandoned office, there are ordinary Russians watching the promises of stability vanish. If this pressure continues, the middle class won't just shrink, it risks disappearing altogether. And that raises the next question. Without a strong middle class to hold society together, what kind of Russia is left behind? The answer is clear in the rise of survival economies. Families once comfortable in cities are leaving for rural villages, trading shopping malls for potato fields and neighborhood gardens. What was once a sign of Soviet hardship is becoming reality again. Households storing sacks of onions, beets, and potatoes in cramped apartments just to get through winter. And it is not just farming. Side hustles have become a lifeline. Teachers deliver food after classes. Engineers sell handmade jewelry online. And even doctors turn to black market medicine to cover gaps in pay. These are not hobbies. They are survival strategies. Even the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace has warned that Russia's shadow economy now rivals official growth, a sign that people are stepping outside state structures to survive. That shift weakens not only household stability, but also the Kremlin's control. And that leaves us with the next question. If more Russians turn away from the official system and retreat into shadows, how long can Moscow pretend it still governs a functioning economy? The answer is already taking shape in real time. As Russians retreat from official systems and cut spending, entire industries begin to collapse alongside households. According to the S&P Global Russia Services (PMI), the service sector is contracting at its sharpest pace since 2022. Meanwhile, manufacturing's PMI has fallen to 48.2 in September, marking a deeper monthly contraction. Once thriving shops now sit empty, restaurants, salons, and small businesses close their doors. Retail chains retrench, cutting inventory and staff. In housing, new construction gets delayed or canceled, and local demand evaporates. As demand shrinks, supply chains break. Factories get fewer orders, then reduce output, then lay off workers. The IMF downgraded Russia's 2025 growth forecast to just 0.9%, highlighting weakness across key sectors. That modest growth masks deep structural rot. When industries falter, the illusion of stability cracks. And if entire industry sectors unravel with household collapse, how much longer can Moscow pretend it still governs a functioning economy? The answer is that Moscow leans hard on reserves, but those reserves are vanishing fast. The Kremlin points to its national wealth fund and the so-called stabilization mechanisms as proof it can absorb shocks. But that illusion is already cracking. Analysts note that Russia's liquid reserves dropped from roughly $113 billion in early 2022 to about $56 billion in late 2024. When oil prices slump, Moscow is forced to tap into the fund just to make ends meet. What's even worse, most reserves are illiquid, tied in gold, yuan, and non-tradable assets, making them useless in a full collapse. Add censorship, arrests, and state media control, and you'll see that the regime's stability is built on smoke and mirrors. And if Russia refuses to change course, and the last tools it uses to slow the collapse keep failing, what kind of future remains for a nation already unraveling? The answer is already in motion. Moscow faces two possible futures, one drawn out and desperate, the other sudden and catastrophic, both haunted by the same central collapse of monetary trust. On the first path, Russia grinds onward in a long decline. Growth stalls, inflation stays high, and capital continues to flee. Just recently, Russians set a record for transfers to foreign brokers. In May 2025, alone over 52 billion rubles were moved abroad, demonstrating accelerating capital flight. As reserves shrink and confidence evaporates, Moscow patches gaps with harsh austerity, more controls, and increasingly aggressive repression. The system survives from day to day, but the citizenry bears the weight. On the second path, a breaking point shatters illusions. If a shock comes, whether it is a collapse in oil prices, a further tightening of sanctions, or a banking crisis, the fragile balance could tip, and the system might snap instead of slowly creaking. The system might snap, not creak. In that scenario, trust implodes not gradually, but suddenly, sending a wave through credit, banking, markets, and daily life. Which future wins is not a matter of desire, but of circumstance. And if Moscow cannot reform, if its tools fail one after another, then what remains is a long, grinding decay or a sudden unraveling, each with its own horrors. When money itself fails, what is left to hold Russia together? And more importantly, if the world's 11th largest economy unravels, will the shockwaves stop at Russia's borders? Or will they ripple outward and strike the global economy we all depend on?